Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Just going to wait a couple more minutes for more of our attendees to join us.
I was just gonna see if you could make me a panelist, if you have that ability, or I can just speak from the audience as well. So doesn't matter.
Nick, can you send Counselor Klingon the panelist link? I think it's connecting to a link with my name on it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can go ahead and promote you to a panelist now, and you should also be able to change Gina's name to your own after I do that. Just give me 1 second.
Okay.
Give it another minute, then we can get started. Thanks everyone. Okay, it is just past 6 o'clock, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining the third community meeting of the Mystic River Outfall and Sewer Separation Project. Just a note that we are recording this meeting, so please take note that if you feel like you can't get enough and you want to come back for a second viewing, we'll be able to post this on our website. Before we get started, I'll note that we do have Ward 4 Councillor Jesse Klingon with us today, so he'll give a brief introduction about this project. It's one that we're pretty excited about in the summer in the city, and know that it'll give us some much needed benefits and stormwater relief in the neighborhood. So I'll turn it over to Councillor Klingon before we dive in.
Yeah. Thank you, Gina. Thank you to the team of staff here this evening. I just want to say hello to my friends and neighbors here on the call. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, I just want to say that I welcome this project after years of hearing from people on Fellsway West and Wheatland Ave, Wheatland Street, sorry, Bailey Road, streets in 10 Hills about flooding in their basements. This will not only is this going to bring some much needed relief, but this is part of the larger plan of this for the city to reduce its combined sewer water outfall discharges. And so it's part of a larger strategic plan by the city. So that's all to say that I want to recognize and sympathize and understand that this is going to create there's going to be some pains in terms of construction in in the Ten Hills area as well as the Fellsway West area. But just as I said, just note that this is going to bring some much needed relief to many homes of folks who have dealt with backed up basements and flooding for years. And so, I just hope that we can all bear it while it's going on, and then just hopefully the benefits will outweigh, what a little bit of pain that we have to temporarily go through to make this project. But yeah, so that's all. I just want to, as your ward representative, recognize, I live right here on Puritan Road in Tent Hills. I do recognize that construction is no fun, but these are upgrades that this area needs, including some of the other water upgrades throughout the streets in Tent Hills in these areas. So yeah, so with that, I will just turn it over to the team here, and they can give us sort of the latest and the timeline and what to expect. So looking forward to getting that update myself. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. So with that, we'll dive in. Just a quick overview of our presentation today. So we'll start with a quick recap and background to the project, introduce ourselves on the design team, as well as reacquaint ourselves with the real drivers of the project, as well as a status update of where we are on the project schedule. We'll go into a little bit more of the details on the project components, so what it is that we're actually building, and then into the benefits, so why we're building it and what benefits in the neighborhood we can expect to see from this work. As you'll hear throughout, we're still a ways away from construction, but as Councillor Klingon noted, recognizing that anytime we do construction, there is some impact on the community, and ways in which we recognize that and try to limit those impacts. Then we'll jump to next steps, where we're continuing with the project before we'll open up for a Q&A.
Yeah, and Gina, just real quick on that note, I just want to mention that since you bring that up, that's exactly why there's been a really strong push for community outreach. I'm sure people have seen around the Ten Hills neighborhood the laminated signs with the QR code to this meeting, so that nobody is surprised if and when it happens. So talk to your neighbors if they weren't able to make it. There's lots of great information on the website. So I just want to emphasize that community outreach piece and why we're here so early on in the process this evening.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. So the project background, my name is Gina Cortese. I'm a senior project manager in the engineering division. I'm managing this project, which I should note maybe now that the full name is the Mystic River Outfall and Sewer Separation Project. That is quite the mouthful, abbreviating it to MROS throughout. With me, I have some of my colleagues in the city. So I have Magdalena Gomez, who's our design liaison and compliance manager, Nick Oleckel, our construction public information officer, as well as Brian Postlewaite, who's our director of engineering, and some other colleagues who are in the audience now. We also have some representation from our engineering consultant team, which is made up of engineers from Stantec and Dewberry. Keith Gardner, the PM for that team, is here with us tonight, should we have any more technical questions. So the project purpose, we've really hit on it at the top. We know that there is known flooding in these neighborhoods. We performed an analysis of flooding in the city a couple of years ago and identified areas that are the hardest hit by flooding and where those priority areas are. And this project rose to the top as the highest ranking priority for improving flooding in the city. So it's one of the very first that we're tackling after that analysis. Another big piece is reducing combined sewer overflows, particularly in this case in the Mystic River. Talk about that a little bit more if you don't know what that is in a couple of slides here. And then, like all of our large engineering projects, particularly in the recent past, we're taking the opportunity to upgrade existing infrastructure in addition to adding new and improved infrastructure to the area. So couple of multi-benefit project here that are really driving us on this work. How are we going to see those benefits? There's a couple of different pieces, we'll call them project components, The first of which is sewer separation. So we'll go into this in a little bit more detail, but the city of Somerville has what's called combined sewers, which means wastewater from homes mixes with stormwater when it rains from the street. And we're finding that for many reasons, it's beneficial for us to separate those two systems moving forward. So we'll be separating that stormwater from wastewater or sanitary sewer in the project area. We'll also be adding a new stormwater outfall and what we call a trunk drain, which is essentially a very large collector pipe. And like I said before, we'll be upgrading existing infrastructure. So you can see on the project, on this slide, on the project area in the map here, project area is represented with a dark purple line. So large portion of Winter Hill, about half of the 10 Hills neighborhood. And then in the yellow, you can see where that large collector pipe, that trunk drain is going to run. And we'll get into the details in a couple of slides here. The project schedule. So like we said, this is our third community meeting. I think we've seen maybe some of you at the first two, but we're really here today because we've reached a design milestone, which is finalizing the preliminary design. So that means we've completed essentially the 30% design milestone. We've performed initial field investigations. We have a pretty good idea of where pipes are going to go and their general sizing. And now we are embarking on that final design piece. So we have about a year of final design left, where we'll be performing additional field investigations, coordinating with government agencies. You'll hear me say this a couple of times, but we have a lot of overlap with jurisdictions outside of the city of Somerville. And so we have a fair amount of permitting that needs to get done that we've started after completing the preliminary design. And then, continuing that design effort. So finalizing things like sizing and location before we are able to bring a contractor on board. So that final design we expect to be completed in mid 2026, and then in late 2026 we hope to go out to bid and bring a contractor on board before beginning construction thereafter. So Councillor Klingen mentioned it. We're finding it's important that the community knows what these projects are going to be before the contractor starts putting out cones. So really trying to keep you all, the community, informed of what this project looks like before it gets here. So go into a little bit more details of what the project components actually are. I jumped into this a little bit on a previous slide, but the big piece here is sewer separation. And some of you might be familiar with a recent project that's wrapping up now in the Spring Hill neighborhood, Spring Hill Sewer Separation Project. But essentially the city of Somerville has what's called a combined sewer system. And that's what you see depicted on this picture on the slide, where when it rains, we have storm drain in the street. We have a roof gutter that collects the storm water, that rainwater, and it sends it into a small neighborhood collector pipe in the street that also receives flow from houses and things like your toilets, your sinks, your showers, and they mix in one pipe. And oftentimes what happens is that pipe is not big enough when it starts to rain really hard and you get more and more storm water filling up that pipe. And so there needs to be relief somewhere. As we've touched on, most of you have noted that when those pipes get full and we have a capacity issue, what can happen is we have backups in homes and low-lying drainage in the streets. And then we also have relief outlets that are called combined sewer outfalls or combined sewer overflows. So that mixture of stormwater and wastewater then gets discharged to a water body, in this case, the Mystic River, in order to relieve some of that capacity constraint in that main pipe. So by performing sewer separation, it's kind of, as it sounds, we separate that stormwater from the wastewater, from the sanitary sewer. And we do that by adding really a whole second network of pipes in the street. So that pipe that used to be combined in the street is repurposed as being sanitary only. And then we add a whole new set of pipes designated just for stormwater. And it's then that stormwater that gets routed directly to the Mystic River anytime it rains. So in this case, with this project, with sewer separation, we'll be adding in a whole new network of stormwater pipes. And what that looks like in this project area is what you see here highlighted in brown. Those are areas where we will be adding new stormwater pipes on those streets. You might be noticing that there's no brown in the 10 Hills neighborhood. That's because those streets like Puritan, Putnam, Governor Winthrop, they already are what we'll call partially separated. They have a secondary set of stormwater pipes that are only for stormwater, a set of pipes that are only for sanitary or wastewater, but a little bit downstream, those pipes converge. And so with this project, in the 10 Hills neighborhood, we won't be adding in a whole new set of stormwater pipes, but we'll be taking that point where they converge and separating them at that point where it hits what you see as that trunk drain we'll talk about in a second. So brown areas, brown highlights, that's where we'll be adding a whole new set of stormwater pipes. What does that actually look like? These are pictures from that project in Spring Hill where there was sewer separation. The brown areas that we highlighted on the last slide represent about 1.7 miles of new storm pipe. These range anywhere from 15-inch in diameter to 36 inches, which you can kind of see in these pictures. On the left, you have something closer to a 15-inch pipe getting put in. On the right, something closer to a 36-inch diameter pipe. So trying to alleviate flooding, you have a lot of water when it rains, you need some bigger pipes to be able to accommodate those flows. Okay, so we've separated out the stormwater in what we'll call those neighborhood streets. Now we have to get it to the Mystic River for it to be able to be discharged. And the way in which we're doing that in this project is, like I said, it's called a trunk drain. Really, it's just a large collector pipe where those neighborhood streets connect into, and then that large pipe runs all the way to the Mystic River. So with this project, we'll be routing that large trunk drain on Wheatland Street, starting near Broadway, which you can see in that top picture. And then we'll route it down Wheatland Street, across Mystic Avenue, under 93, and then it'll pop out and run parallel to Fellsway before it takes a left turn across Shore Drive and then out to the Mystic River. Talking about big pipes, they get even bigger with this trunk drain. So on the Wheatland side of things, we have an 8 foot by 4 foot concrete box. I'll show a picture of that in a second. And then we switch over to a 78-inch diameter round pipe once we start to cross Mystic Ave and across Fellsway. And the reason why we have to change sizes is because we have a lot of conflicts on the way. This is not a clear path for us. There's no such thing as a clear path in a city as densely populated as Somerville. So we have to avoid things like large gas transmission mains, like support structures underneath I-93 that are holding the highway up. And so we have to do a little bit of needle threading and playing with the dimensions of our storm drain to be able to run all the way from Broadway essentially to the Mystic. So these are big numbers. What does that look like? Here's some examples from recent projects in the area. On the left, you see a 72-inch round concrete pipe. Add half a foot to that, and you have the diameter of our 78-inch pipe. And then on the right, we're back in Somerville. This is actually a picture of Union Square for those who didn't live through the work there. It's pretty impressive. Where if you add a foot in the height dimension of the box you see on the screen, you'll see that that's the 8 by 4 foot dimension that we'll be putting in on Wheatland Street. So on Wheatland Street, just a kind of quick schematic for folks to see how large that is and some of the conflicts that we are working around on, in particular, Wheatland Street, where we have sidewalk sewers that run down both sidewalks. We have in red what will be the box culvert, and then the smaller circles you see throughout are other utilities that need to be maintained in the right of way. So we've collected our storm water in the neighborhoods. We've gotten it all the way to the Mystic. Where do we discharge in the Mystic? And that's where we're putting our stormwater outfall. So that big yellow star is where we're putting our stormwater outfall. That is in Blessing of the Bay Park. If you can picture it, the small pathway, and maybe you can see my cursor here, is the pedestrian footpath that runs underneath the Route 28 bridge. Excuse me. And we've had some questions in the past about why we chose this location. So I want to touch upon that. There are a couple of different reasons why we did. The first that I touched upon a little bit is what we're calling on the screen here a hydraulics requirement. So we're moving all of this water by gravity. And so one of the most important things that we as engineers are looking at is our slopes and our sloping profile of our large trunk drain and therefore the outfall. And when you have as many conflicts that we are working around, like I-93 supports, like gas mains, like large water mains that we can't move, we have a very tight needle to thread to get ourselves all the way from Broadway to the Mystic River with gravity. And so doing that really limits our ability to shift left to right on where that outfall is placed. Another piece is existing infrastructure. Just to the right of that footpath in this picture, there is existing drainage and an outfall that's in pretty rough shape that will be improving, and well, removing part of it and improving the rest as part of this project. And that helps us mitigate some of the permitting requirements that we would otherwise have if we went to a completely new location. So I do have a point here about state coordination required. Blessing of the Bay is a DCR owned property. Fellsway West is not city owned. We have a lot of coordination that we've already started doing, but we'll continue to coordinate with the DCR, DEP, Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, all of which we pretty much would have to do anywhere we place our outfall, but it is something that we are working on currently. So again, kind of what can we expect this to look like? The picture on the left is an existing outfall that's near Assembly Square. And on the right is a schematic that shows what we can expect that new outfall pipe to look like. As a reminder, that's that 78-inch pipe that will be exposed on the Mystic. So the other project components, a big piece is existing utility upgrades. So we have storm and sewer pipes that are existing in this neighborhood, and like most of those pipes throughout the city, they're quite old, and many of them are in need of some serious repairs. So you can see that picture to the top left. That's a pipe that has experienced some pretty severe cracking and is in danger of collapsing. So while we're doing all of this construction work in the neighborhood, we don't want to leave these pipes that are in need of repair without actually having made some fixes. So we can do that in two different ways. The first is replacement, which is as simple as you dig up the broken pipe, you pull it out, and you replace it with a brand new one. This is helpful in pictures like you see on the top right there, where you have the more severe defects. It also allows us to upsize some piping. So if we know that we have a capacity constraint on some of the neighborhood streets, we're able to go in and put in a bigger pipe, which provides more stormwater space for stormwater to enter, essentially. So we'll be doing that in approximately a mile of sewer pipe, half a mile of storm drain. And then the second option for us is a rehabilitation option, which we really like because we don't have to dig to do it. It's called cured in place pipe lining. And essentially you feed a liner, and that's what you can see in that bottom right picture is you feed this liner through the existing pipe. You expand it with steam, that steam cures it, and you are left with this liner on the inside of the pipe that restores the structural integrity of that pipe. So the slightly less severe damage receives this lining, and it gives us, we'll be doing that for roughly 2 miles of sewer and a tenth of that for storm drain. And this is important not only because Nobody wants a collapsing pipe, which could mean a sinkhole and can mean that there's no service until it is fixed. But it also prevents groundwater from following the cracks into the pipes. And I keep talking about capacity being a constraint. And so every time that we can keep groundwater or stormwater out of our sewer pipes, we provide ourselves more space for the sewer and the sewage that should be in those pipes, and leads to things like backups both in homes and in combined sewer overflows. So where are these happening? Where is this sewer and storm upgrade happening? You see in the Winter Hill portion of the project area. In red, you have that dig and replace scope, and in yellow, you have that CIPP lining. I will note in the 10 Hills area, we are still performing some additional field investigations, so we're not 100% certain what the sewer and storm upgrades will look like in the 10 Hills neighborhood, but we are working on that through final design. Potable water, not necessarily a cause and effect to our flooding needs, but obviously a very important utility that we need to take care of. We performed an analysis several years ago where we looked at what our potable water needs are in the city, identifying areas where we need improvements. And those improvements are what you see on the screen here, things like fire flow capacity. That's if hopefully we never need it, but if you do need it, to make sure that there's enough water flowing to hydrants to be able to fight any sort of fire. Water age, which is really important when you think about the quality of the water that's moving through the pipes, being able to maintain disinfection properties. And of course, structural integrity is important with all of our pipes. So in that analysis we performed a handful of years ago, we identified portions of this project area as needing some improvements. And that amounts to roughly 2.5 miles of pipe and several hydrants. So again, you can see on this slide, hopefully you can see the lime green is where we're proposing water main improvements. You'll note, again, this is predominantly in the Winter Hill area, and that's, again, based on that study that was performed a handful of years ago, identifying Winter Hill as an area of need. This is slightly separate from the project that we're talking about now, in that gas upgrades that I'm sure most of you in the neighborhood are very well familiar with being performed by National Grid right now. They are not part of this project, but they have been working with us to make sure that the work that they are doing now enables us to come in when we get to construction of the MROS project, so that they're not in our way, essentially. This is work that they're doing to replace old gas mains with newer and safer plastic mains. And so this work had to happen anyway in the next several years, and they've been working with us to complete that ahead of when our contractors will be in the neighborhood as well. So I believe that they're still out there, but should be stopping for the year shortly, and they'll be returning next year to complete the work on the streets indicated on this slide. And then streetscapes. So we're going to be digging up street. We have to do something once we're done digging. In this case, on Wheatland, where we have that trunk drain running through, we'll be providing full pavement restoration from curb to curb, as well as sidewalk restorations. We'll be focusing some electrical improvements to traffic signals, and that it's not going to look any different when you are walking, biking, driving through the intersection, but it will increase and improve our reliability of the internal components of some of those signals. What you see on the slide here is a sidewalk ramp detail that is approved by ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act. So anywhere that we are touching the sidewalks and we have existing sidewalk ramps that don't meet that ADA requirement, we will be updating those so that they do meet the ADA accessibility requirements. And then we'll also be looking to add some biobasins, which is green stormwater infrastructure that I'll touch on in future slides. And then, as I said, anytime we're digging, we need to do some sort of restoration. So any of those other streets, we will be repairing the trench width and sidewalk panels wherever we're doing work. But I do want to note for those of you who have participated in prior community meetings and have talked to us, work that we are not including in this MROS project moving forward do include some of the priority areas that are noted in the Somerville Bicycle Network Plan. So that's neighborway treatments on Wheatland and Jakes and a two-way bike lane on Temple Street. Given the timing of this MROS project and the utility work that is needed to be done, we have taken these bicycle network plan projects out of the MROS project. That is not to say that the city is anything but fully committed to achieving the bicycle network plan and the projects indicated therein, just that they will follow as separate projects to this MROS project. And then we have green stormwater infrastructure. So for those of you who aren't intimately familiar with it, it's essentially using built systems to treat stormwater that mimic natural processes. So you might be familiar with things like biobasins. It's the picture here that I think might be on Somerville Ave, but you can find them on Somerville Ave in the Spring Hill project area as well. And it really focuses on using plants and soil to slow stormwater down. So it takes a longer time to get into our stormwater system, which again helps with that capacity problem. And it also helps to remove pollutants. So while pure stormwater is typically much cleaner than a mix of stormwater and wastewater, there are still pollutants in stormwater, things like oils and grease and decaying matter like leaves are not the best. And so we need options to treat some of those pollutants. And so we do that in two separate ways. So one of those is a biobasin like you see on the screen, which has great co-benefits like the vegetation you see here and oftentimes bump outs that correlate with needed streetscape improvements. And then we have what's called a subsurface infiltration trench, which exist completely below grade, but they are great tools for us because they allow us to do some of that natural process that you find in appropriate soils in places where we otherwise couldn't fit a biobasin above ground. So green stormwater infrastructure is it's a hot topic, and it's something that we as a city are increasingly committed to. So with this project, we looked at starting from, let's take every square inch of the project area and see if we can add some green stormwater infrastructure to it. And once we start there, we then have to, unfortunately, rule out sites that are unsuitable for things like shallow bedrock or high groundwater or non-city ownership of parcels that are really, really hard to engineer away. So after we performed that analysis, we selected 35 sites that are suitable for GSI installation. And then we looked to prioritize those even further based on really their overall effectiveness, both in removing pollutants, in the volume of water that they can handle and slow down, whether or not they had co-benefits associated with them like vegetation. And so of that 35, we've identified 15 that have been identified in that preliminary design to be carried into final design. So those are the project components. We'll talk again and quantify a little bit better what the project benefits are. So we talk about flooding all the time on this project. And as we've said, we know that flooding is a problem in this neighborhood. So before I dive in a little bit, a quick lesson on what some of these numbers mean. A 10-year storm is a storm with the probability of happening once every 10 years, or a 10% chance of it happening in a year. 24-hour storm means that the duration of that storm event is expected to last 24 hours. And so when you're looking at these slides, you can see on the left, these are the existing conditions if one of those storms were to occur. This is from some modeling that we've done for the flooding. Wherever you see blue, there's flooding. The deeper the blue, the deeper the flooding. And we know that as climate change progresses on, there will be more intense and more frequent rain events. And so as we look forward, and in this case, we used 2030 as our design storm. With this project, a lot of that flooding goes away. More than close to 95% of that flood volume is reduced with this MROS project. So you see substantial improvements, particularly on those streets closest to Foss Park. Another benefit is that CSO reduction. You know, I keep going back to kind of the basics of what that means, but in a combined sewer system like we have now, again, we have a capacity issue when it rains. And so our pipes that handle both wastewater and stormwater fill up, and we need relief. And that relief will either come in people's homes or it will come in the rivers. And so what we have now is a combined system where those combined overflows occur as relief. And because we are separating, we have the benefit of reducing CSOs. This is kind of a busy slide, and there's a lot more information that has gone into this, but the real basics are that the red dots you see here are two existing CSOs, combined sewer overflows, that the project area currently contributes to. So when it rains, and we have that capacity issue, stormwater and wastewater that is mixed from this neighborhood gets discharged as overflows when it rains really heavily into these two overflows that SOM 7A and MWR 205 noted on the map. Once the project is completed, we've modeled those combined sewer overflows to decrease by approximately 50 million gallons in a year. That's 55% of the volume that these two CSOs see in a year, and we'll be decreasing the number of activations by 9. There's a lot of information that went into this. There's a current project that the city of Somerville is working on with the city of Cambridge and the MWRA, where they are looking at CSOs across not only the Mystic River watershed, but the Alewife Brook and Charles River watershed as well. If you have more questions about this, I highly encourage you to either reach out directly or to visit the website specifically targeted towards CSO reduction. But the name of the game here is that we see significant CSO reductions because of this MROS project. So we mentioned we're a little ways out from construction, but we know that construction is a challenge and a no pain, no gain kind of situation, as Councillor Klingon referenced in the beginning. So there will be some neighborhood impacts during construction, periodic street closures, detours, parking restrictions, some of the more frustrating impacts that can happen in the neighborhood. The main theme here is that we are committed to providing communication with the neighborhood in advance of pretty much all work, but especially work that impacts things like street closures, detours, changes to whether or not you can use your water service, and also making sure that our contractors are only using up the space that they need to be safe and effective in their job. We'll see here temporary water service interruptions. This is pretty limited for whenever we're doing that water main work, and is again notified in advance. And then construction noise. Typical work hours in the city of Somerville run from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Work usually ends before that. If there is work that is needed outside of normal hours because of the type of work or where that work is located, particularly when the state has jurisdiction, they often force us to work at night. That sort of deviation in work hours will be communicated as well. Now the theme here is communication. We will do our best to push information out to you, but there are also ways for you to grab that information yourself. So we'll be focused on having community meetings, particularly those focused on construction as we get closer to the construction timeline. We'll be providing regular updates on our project website that's linked several times in this presentation. City alerts, you can sign up at the Somerville website, somerville.gov/alerts, where you'll get notifications specific to construction projects like this it's based on where you are located. So you put in your address and it'll notify you for impacts close to your address. I'll just put in a plug that you can do this anytime. You can also sign up for things like street sweeping alerts and trash. It's a really great service. And then a direct line. So you can always email us construction@somervillema.gov, as well as reach out to us directly with contact info we'll have at the end. And the next steps. So showed a little bit of a timeline of the last, of the big picture timeline, a little bit more detailed on design milestones here. We mentioned we finalized that 30% design, and we are marching towards 100% design in the summer of next year, 2026. Following that, we will go out to bid and bring a contractor on board, and following that, of course, they will begin construction. And we expect that to be in either the late winter or the end of 2026, beginning of 2027. A lot of that work mentioned before, we're finalizing our field investigations. We are completing all of our permit needs, and that's all for construction as well as land use, environmental. Pretty much if you can think of a state agency, we have to get a permit for them for this project. And then of course, finalizing the actual details of design, like sizing, siting, schedule implications, and cost. So with that, we are committed to having increasing communications and opportunities for outreach as we get closer and closer to construction. The first kind of set of those is virtual office hours that you can register for on the project website. I don't think those links are up yet, but they will be probably by tomorrow. You can, if you want to have some detailed questions, you can come on and we'll answer them for you, as well as outreach events in the future, like tabling, like flyering, getting out into the neighborhood. And as always, there's more information on our website. Please do visit the website for more. I said my name is Gina Cortese. You can also reach me directly, my email address, as well as my colleagues who are listed here. And with that, I will take a glass of water and we can jump to questions for anyone who has any. And I think, Nick, you'll have to promote them. So maybe if you have a question, you can raise your hand. Nick, are you
Yep.
able to? Okay.
Kristen, if you have a question, you should be able to go ahead and ask it now.
Yeah, I was wondering, how much is, I've got a few questions. How much is this project going to cost? Is it part of the long-term CSO control plan? Is MWRA paying for it?
Okay, just making sure I have all those written out so I can answer.
Thank you.
Sure, thanks, Kristen. So I'll start with question number 2, I think, is whether or not this is part of the long-term control plan, and that's referencing the work that Cambridge, the city of Somerville is doing with Cambridge and the MWRA. Those joint entities are submitting a draft long-term control plan targeted at eliminating CSOs at the end of this year. The entities will be proposing recommended alternatives, essentially projects for each watershed that impacts those cities. So for the city of Somerville, that's the Mystic River, which is here, as well as the Ellsworth Brook, and also includes the Cambridge Charles River, excuse me. We have presented to City Council a recommended plan that includes, for the Mystic, that includes this Mystic River outfall and sewer separation project, as well as additional storage. That plan will be finalized, that draft plan will be finalized in December, and still needs to be approved by the MWRA board. So it's possible that the recommended alternatives change between now and then, but what's been presented to City Council in Somerville does include this project. That's number two. Number one, the cost. We are estimating something around a magnitude of $70 million construction cost. However, with a big asterisk that we have only completed 30% of design, so that is subject to change by up to 2-digit percentage points. So that is subject to change as we continue our detailed design. And then whether or not MWRA is paying for it, I think that is also in reference to the work that we've been doing with MWRA and City of Cambridge on the CSO control plan. Those negotiations are still happening, and so we haven't appropriated funding for this project yet. So I will just say that it's that's not a certainty yet.
Great. Thank you, Kristen. Next question goes to Jean. You should be able to go ahead, unmute, and ask your question now, Jean.
Hey, there we go. Hey, thanks very much for the excellent, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Jean.
Yeah, thanks for the excellent presentation. I'm Gene Blake. I'm the caretaker maintenance manager for the Self-Realization Church at 66 Fellsway West, right in the kind of the middle of it all. And just as Gina said early on, we've had a lot of drama and some ugly drama at the church since we bought it 12 years ago. So this project is very much welcomed by us. Just one thing regarding the notification. I'm on the Somerville notifications page, so I get notifications whenever you're dumping water into the river, etc. I didn't get a notification about this meeting. In fact, and I attended the open house just down the street, I don't know, a year or so ago. But the only reason I knew about it was I was cleaning Fellsway West. We do kind of volunteer work to keep the street clean. And I happened to see one sign at the very end of Fellsway West, right up against Mystic Ave. That was just not really good advertising. So for future meetings, maybe make a few more of those signs and put them on that huge long fence at Foss Park. That'd be great. Okay, I'm, because we are hard up to Fellsway West, and then on our backside, our minister's house is on Wheatland. I'm envisioning this, box culvert going in on Wheatland and shutting down Wheatland totally, which it will be when you do the box culvert. And those people, I guess, are going to have to park on Fellsway West. And we have a church, and so we're kind of wondering how the heck our parishioners are going to get to the church. So has there been any thought about speaking with DCR about relegating a piece of Foss Park for parking? And the reason, part of the reason I say that is that there are two softball fields, one directly across from our church at 66 Fellsway West, and then one closer to Mystic. No one uses those ever. It's like a gigantic dog walking area right now. So it seems to me you could do that if DCR were to, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Jean. And first, thanks for drawing our attention to our advertising. We'll certainly take heed of that for future outreach. As far as parking is concerned, we certainly know that it can be a challenge in a construction zone. I don't think we've ruled out, because we are so far away from construction at this point, kind of novel solutions to providing additional parking in the neighborhood during construction. And so point well taken that maybe there's something to be had in coordinating with DCR there. Okay. I will say that we also will work with our contractors that when there isn't work actively occurring, that we open up as much parking as humanly possible, and much of that will happen on the weekends. I know it's not the only time that people will need parking, but that is a piece of it. So it's not like the road will be closed 24/7 for 3 months at a time, if that is a fear. As well as, for the large users like the church, and this is something that we will be continuing as we again march closer to construction. We will be reaching out directly to those large users and trying to coordinate with you directly so that
Okay.
some of the more impactful work can be arranged around needs of the neighborhood.
Yeah, it just our one concern is, with the trunk line going into Wheatland. I mean, that's going to wipe out Wheatland, and so we we need to do something on Fellsway West. We can't have both streets go down simultaneously. So here, I'll let other people jump in now with questions. But thank you very much. And
Apologies, Gene. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
no, that's fine. Just thank you very much, and I'll circle back by the other methods that you've identified for anything further I have. Thank you.
Thanks,
Actually, I
Jen.
appreciate it.
Just before we go to the next,
Before we-
before we go to the next person, I just so I want to just clarify one thing. So the city alerts that you can get through, and you can select multiple ways like phone, email. That's usually for like snow emergencies and stuff like that. The comms department doesn't send out stuff about meetings like this. But my question to you all is, who is maintaining the list? Like when you did have an open house or we did have people register prior, who's maintaining that email list? And is that with Nick?
Nick, I don't want to jump over you here. I think it's not with Nick directly, but it is with some other colleagues that we have in the city. I'll be honest, it's not the easiest to get access to that list, but we do have it, and we'll seek to use it a little bit better moving forward.
Okay, yeah, just because, I like if Gene said he had been to the open house, I'm assuming that means that, if he had signed up for alerts, that's the email people should be getting as far as alerts goes for a specific project. But anyway, yeah, if we can just maintain the, integrity of that list, make sure that people are being added as necessary as they sign up. Because I definitely don't like hearing that, people aren't getting the emails, but thank you.
I do just want to note, kind of, Gene, as one of your last comments there of having Fellsway West having parking restrictions at the same time as Wheatland. One of the permits that the contractor will need to get once they're brought on board is a site occupancy permit, which is approved by the city's engineering department, which looks at things like that and making sure that there is an undue burden on the neighborhood for closures and parking and things like that. So we do have a system in place to avoid too much impact in one space at a time, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Gina. Next up for questions, we have
Stephanie. Stephanie, you should be able to go ahead and ask your question now.
Thank you. Okay, I've got two and they're a little bit different. One is clarification from my understanding. I think, and it was very well presented. Thank you for the presentation. The two CSOs that will be created new, is it still possible that they will contain sewerage in an overflow event, even though the volume should be much reduced because this stormwater will be separated? So that's the clarification question. And then the other question is, with the remediation plans and the bio basins and sidewalk restoration, are there considerations that will be made for, scoring a multi-win? So for example, like pollinators and also like native trees all at the same time, like if there's a Bradford pear, can they like knock that out and replace it? So yeah, basically, can you speak to any of the nature considerations that might be being considered? Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. So the first question about CSOs, those two CSOs that we showed on the screen are existing, and they will still be existing and active after the completion of this project. So there are plans in place. Again, I'll direct you to that draft plan, draft long-term control plan that the city is working on with Cambridge and MWRA to see what other projects are being proposed to further reduce CSOs at those 2 outfall locations. But even with this project, we decrease it by about, I think I said 55%. But the remaining volume is expected to continue there. Without further projects, other projects might take care of it. This one takes care of that 50% or so. The biobasin sidewalk restoration, as far as nature wins there. Certainly anytime we can add in a biobasin, we are A, thrilled about the co-benefits, and B, working with our public space and urban forestry team to make sure that the plant material that we're putting in is, they're native, they do the job that we want them to do. One of the things that we were actually really relieved about in this project is there are quite a few street trees, mature street trees in the project area in the sidewalk, and we are set to preserve most of them, which is a really big win for us given how much infrastructure we have in a very small space. So for us, that's a big win for us, is being able to keep the trees that are already there. Certainly if there are instances where we have to remove a tree, and I really do, I'd have to check this, but there's fewer than I think 5 trees that we think we might need to remove. We'll have to go through the ordinance about removing trees and having a hearing for any trees that are removed. But for all engineering projects, we again work with our public space and urban forestry counterparts who are the experts in this field to make sure that we're putting in vegetation that meets other city goals.
Stephanie, next up,
The question is, Leonard, you should be able to go ahead and ask your question now, Leonard.
Thank you. My mom would be thrilled to hear you call me Leonard instead of Leonard. Anyways, just as a little point, of information, I actually found out about the meeting the first time, through the weekly mailing, that the city sends out. It was listed there, and I was actually impressed by the number of times I ran into the signs. Wired or plastic wired, to post me. So there are gaps, but there are also, lots of coverage. So kudos there. A couple of questions. I know that in Cambridge, we have a situation where, or they have a situation where they have the sewer. This is separated, but then it combines again into a CSO. I gather from this one, the sewer line is never going to combine again with stormwater. It will go to wherever it gets treated before it so will never touch the Mystic, right?
Yes. So, and actually the situation you're describing is what we see in 10 Hills, where we have separated on the neighborhood streets like Putnam and Governor Winthrop, and then later on they combine. What this project will do is fully separated, only a stormwater pipe. Will never head back to Deer Island. It goes to, as it's designed currently, it goes straight to the Mystic.
Okay.
Thanks, Leonard. I don't currently see anyone else with their hands up. So if any of the folks who already asked questions have additional questions, definitely feel free to raise your hand, or if there's anyone else that we haven't heard from yet, I'll make sure to prioritize their question. Looks like we have another question from Kristen.
Thanks for taking a second question for me. And actually, I was just asking if you could please clarify that the CSOs at the Mystic River are treated at Somerville Marginal CSO treatment facility, while the CSOs at Alewife Brook are not treated. And then the other, I actually have kind of a technical question that hopefully you can help with. And that is, how are you removing pollutants from the stormwater before it is discharged into Mystic River? I'm particularly interested in total suspended solids and also phosphorus. Thank you.
Okay, so the first question, yes, you are correct. The marginal facility does provide a degree of treatment. disinfection and some settling, and there is not any treatment currently at the Elway Brook, at least at SOM 1A, which is the outfall in Somerville to the Elway Brook. The second question is how we're removing pollutants, focusing on total suspended solids and phosphorus. The short answer is we're going to get some treatment from from those GSI installations. The long answer is that we are not getting a ton of treatment from those solutions, and so there is going to be additional pollutants in the stormwater, like total suspended solids and pollutants that do make their way to the Mystic.
All right, Kristen, next we have another question
From Leonard.
Thank you. So I'm new to the area, and so I'm really happy to see that I'm going to experience some construction. That's totally fine. I'm pro development, and pro improvement. And along the lines of pro development, I know that we have the big development that's coming online. At where the Star Market used to be. So what kind of capacity is this going to add to the system? So let's say, there's some other sites that we want to develop. So how much more can we do?
Not sure that is a question I can answer for you on the spot, Leonard, but
Sure.
I'd be happy to talk with you maybe after the meeting at another time.
Sure.
I can send you an email, or you can probably send me one a little more easily.
Sure.
We can talk about that a little more.
Sure. I mean, like I said, I'm coming from this as a total ally, and so I like what we're doing here. And so I'm happy to talk later. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. I don't currently see any other hands raised at the moment. Does anyone have any remaining questions or comments here before we break for the evening?
Yeah, I'll just say again, thank you to all of you for this presentation and the continued outreach. I would emphasize that any email addresses that we acquire, make sure they're getting put into that master list for this particular project. Other than that, yeah, just great presentation, and maybe I'll try to make one of the office hours that you're all having. But that's it for me.
Great.
You'll enjoy your evening.
Thanks, Counselor. Thanks everyone for attending. We'll post the slides and the recording on the project website. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.